Yes, it is. And we are Sports in the Dot. It's the My Michelle Live podcast.
My Michelle Live. My Michelle Live. Sports Timeout. The fans, the fields, the faith, the fun. Here's Michelle.
Yes, I am. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Michelle Mendoza. Bam, 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 bam. Absolutely. We are looking at our Friday fun day. I know that we've got at least one Seahawk fan there. I see that in the back. Up in Seattle, they call it Happy Blue Friday. It's a tradition up there. Every city has their own traditions. And today we're going to be talking about some big, crazy news stories, including, Rich, a Seattle tie to an old Seahawk who it went off the rails this last week. Suicide, drunken rampage. And man, that's going to be crazy. We're going to be talking about soccer, the Olympics, and while America is debating over who's hateful because they're not getting vaccinated and who's not, well, there's quite a few Olympians who are saying, I'm not doing it. Why? You may be surprised. We're going to take all of this on as we sports, and
and
more sports, and more sports. But right now we have Encyclopedia Rich.
Encyclopedia Rich.
The Encyclopedia.
We have Garrick Payne.
Get ready to get...
Hey, Reverend, you could have just said, amen.
I do love that. And me, well, I'm Michelle Mendoza, your humble host. Glad to be with you today.
My Michelle Live podcast. Here's Michelle.
Bam, bam, bam. All right, that's enough of that. Thank you so much,
the
guys.
Wonder Woman of sports.
There
Michelle
you go.
Mendoza.
Boom, 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 boom for the win. Thanks, guys, for joining us today. So lots of crazy, interesting stories. Sports has gotten so interesting. I started off with a story. This is kind of a weird one. So let's just get the weird out of the way. Richard Sherman, of course, plays for the 49ers, used to be a Seattle Seahawk. Now, he was one of my favorite players, actually. One of the reasons being that Richard Sherman is intellectual. He's got brains up there. From the recent news story, I'm not sure how often he uses them. He surely didn't this last week. But he plays, you've heard me say this, Richard Sherman, guys, to me, he plays football like people play chess. He uses intellect, not just your stereotypical big man, run with football. You know, he really has played smart. Though he got a little big for his britches. He railed against, up in Seattle, there's this love your brother kind of mentality that has really helped Seattle, through Coach Pete Carroll, be a dominating force, a competitive force, I'll say, in football. And Richard Sherman was all in, and then it's like, oh, this is just silly. This is this is grade school stuff. Well, his behavior this week, Rich Hallstrom, was the stuff of grade school stuff, or worse.
Well, I think the way that we go about this, let's first of all say, before we really start talking about this, because this is some serious stuff.
It is stuff.
Domestic violence related charges, DUI related charges. He is going to be arraigned officially 2 p.m. on Friday Pacific time today.
Today, yeah.
Yes, and we want to make sure that we get that official news out there. I'm not going to go through the entire timeline. Basically, Richard Sherman, from all accounts, has been having some personal issues off the field. Doesn't take away from the fact that he was a great football player for the Seahawks, helped them win a Super Bowl, probably made the greatest football play in Seahawk history, or one of them, to get them to the Super Bowl. But let's go through the incident. He's at his home in Maple Valley, drinks 2 hard bottles of liquor
Now that's Maple Valley up in Washington State.
Threatens to allegedly kill himself. His wife, Ashley Moss, calls 911 seeking help and intervention from legal authorities. Then he takes a car and drives into a construction zone and does not hurt anybody. Thankfully, that is a miracle, real miracle of God that did not happen. Then he crashes that car in the construction zone, then proceeds to walk several miles to his father-in-law's house, where he then tries to enter the premises, allegedly under the influence of alcohol. And there is video out there. Great thing, the internet, sometimes, where he is trying to knock down the door to communicate or get to or have a conversation with his father-in-law, and it is very disturbing. Did I do a good job describing all that, Michelle?
Yeah, I think you did. Wow.
Yeah, I think, there's some conversations happening about depression, okay? And I think that clearly factors into what's going on here, as well as this was a statement that was released on Thursday afternoon after he was released from prison. It says, from jail. I learned recently there's a difference between prison and jail. I always use the terms interchangeably, but it says at this time, this is from his wife, we're going to make no statements except he didn't harm anybody. This is what she told the Seattle Times. Actually, this is on Wednesday. My kids were not harmed in the incident. He's a good person, and this is not his character. We're doing all right, just trying to get him out. I want people to know that no one was injured. So, it's these kinds of situations are so tough because you see this public persona and this kind of larger than life character. I mean, he really was talking it up on the field, and I mean, he's a Stanford graduate, so even if you're an athlete at Stanford, you have to meet the standard of education. So he is a very intelligent person. But I think it just goes to show you, as I've heard the saying before, we all have clay feet, right? I mean, there's we're all human. Nobody's above anything. And I think it's important to keep that perspective.
And as you're watching today, that's something that why I wanted to lead with this story. We talk about sports and we talk about the people who have made it. We talk about the striving and the hard work, and we see success stories. Sports figures can seem larger than life. They can be the people that our kids can look up to, but they are just people. And you look at someone brilliant, successful, athletic, made it to the top, Super Bowl ring, and yet dealing with possible substance abuse, definitely substance abuse, to what extent we don't know, dealing with possibly depression, issues that are going on, and a wife that says, this isn't the man I married. This isn't who he really is. Everyone goes through crap. No one is above that. There's no game you can play and there's no field you can play on that makes you exempt from the condition of human life.
Amen.
Wow.
But I think one of the other points that we should point out here, let's not excuse any of this, and let's also not make Richard Sherman the victim, because he put a lot of people by his actions in danger. Especially
there's a certain entitlement sometimes that comes with success and status, and we've seen that many times. Do you know who I am? This self-exalted persona, not okay. So
no, he didn't say that.
No, but
I've heard others say
happens.
That. Absolutely, yeah.
But that's what happens. No. I mean, come on, you are entitled. Look at you. That's what happens. You have the right to do that. You feel that you are above the law to a certain degree. Anyone
I'm
can
actually
feel
concerned.
That way.
I'm concerned that he was released. to be honest.
Without bail.
That's the thing that bothers me the most.
Without
Garrick.
bail. Without bail. If that were Garrick, oh my gosh, we'd be visiting you in Sing Sing, dude.
I better behave.
Yeah, you better. You better behave. You ain't no Richard Sherman, buddy. We love you here. We think you're a superstar, but
I mean, we have no way of knowing, and the judge cited that it was due to the fact that he had no criminal background or history that he was released.
And the judge also called him a pillar of the community. And I didn't hear that. I do not forget all the good things that Richard Sherman has done, but we cannot have
privilege again. That's privilege again. You are a pillar to the community, Rich. And by the way, Rich, can I ask you something? Can you turn your camera? Because all I see is like your ear.
The side of your ear.
How's that?
That's better. It's like, well,
I think it's the position of his microphone. He's trying to talk into his microphone.
I think he's ashamed to be seen with us, is what I was thinking.
That would have happened a long time ago. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, there was another NFL story that you sent out to us, Rich, about Tom Brady. Now the Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback.
This is extraordinary.
Let me finish my sentence. You're excited about this, aren't you? Crazy story though, where he played a whole season with a torn MCL. Are you kidding me? I mean, you've played with injuries, Garrick. That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, for him to play the entire season with that, I haven't had an MCL injury. I've played with meniscus damage and things like that, which you can kind of play through. But yeah, to have a torn MCL, that's pretty pretty crazy.
Go ahead.
For anybody that doesn't think Tom Brady is tough, there's your evidence.
Is it interesting how Tom Brady, have you seen him on a lot of commercials? It's as though whoever's his managing staff, they're making some decisions to make him more personable. And I've seen that when I was spending time in Tampa. Tampa wasn't, they were thrilled to get someone of his quality on their team. Absolutely. But, not a lot of people were Tom Brady fans. Now you're seeing a lot, especially down there, you're seeing a lot of commercials that show a human side to this otherwise godlike figure of Tom Brady. So that's been kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And
speaking of larger than life, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, 7 Super Bowl titles will do that. We'll do that for you.
Yeah. Hey, anyone excited though about NFL being right around the corner?
I'm totally excited, and I'm totally excited to have the NFL going at the same time as the Kraken is going to be going. That's going to be fun.
Okay, so Kraken, people across the country have no idea that Seattle has an expansion team now. NHL, I was down in Tampa. We talked about this last week. I was down in Tampa as the Lightning bolted back into the Stanley Cup. I thought that was so exciting, guys, because Tampa, the whole city, those fans, they were robbed of the ability to watch the cup do laps, robbed of the ability to cheer in the stands. That's pretty, and it's pretty sad. But we're also moving to the Olympics. We're seeing that the Olympians are being robbed of their family coming to see them. They're going to be robbed of the red carpet welcome. They have to leave all their loved ones at home, quarantine when they arrive. They have to submit frequent saliva tests, comply with all kinds of rules and regulations. There are no hugs. There are no handshakes. There's no high fives, and there are no proverbial butt slaps, which I'm kind of okay with. They cannot venture outside of the complex, outside of competition, unless they're at a limited list of pre-approved locations. It's kind of crazy when you just saw Coors Field packed to the rim for the All-Star game. We had Wembley Stadium for the Euro 2020 final. We had Tour de France where people are lining the streets. Everything seems to be going back to normal. And yet, here we are with the Olympics, and it's closed off. No viewership.
Well, I think it just shows that the IOC and the local organizing committee, I think I brought this point up the last time that we discussed this issue, they didn't handle this issue very well. And they've kind of, one day it's one decision, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday it's another decision. We're going to have fans. We'll have 50% capacity. We'll have 25% capacity. We'll have local fans, but we won't have any out-of-country visitors. So they have never really substantiated their policies and made a definitive decision. And it doesn't surprise me. The IOC doesn't do a very good job of making definitive decisions on a lot of things.
Yeah, I'm wondering if the fact that only 3% or less of the Japanese population is vaccinated had something to do with it as well.
Oh,
that's a whole cultural thing.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Garrick.
I was just going to say, the Asian cultures, the Asian countries tend to be more cautious in that regard. I mean, Korea has had a very, very low COVID rate because of the fact that they were very strict about their quarantine policies. I have a dear friend who has been back and forth from Korea several times, and each time he had to be completely quarantined for 2 weeks. This most recent time, when he went back less than a month ago, he was able to quarantine with his family. But before that, had to be completely quarantined in a separate hotel. And so it's really interesting. And it doesn't actually surprise me. I'm not sure how much this is the IOC and how much this is Japan.
I think it's a combination. Of both.
Exactly. And so it's not completely surprising to me, but I echo this sentiment that it is completely, it's so disappointing for the families of and the athletes, the competitors.
I'm just going to say Japan, I don't get it anyway. Did you know that Tokyo is banning alcohol sales now in this, what they're calling the COVID emergency? I'm like, what? That's what people subsisted on during lockdown here in the United States. So, you don't really know what some of the extent of the decisions that are made are just made to make people feel like they're safer. Are they really any safer? This has been crazy. And then on top of that, guys, many athletes like the one guy who is the gold medal favorite in swimming, Michael Andrew, he's an American star, and he says he's standing by his decision not to get vaccinated. And this is interesting. In time, just this morning, I was on social media, I saw someone's post that says, before you get together with your friends and family, make sure that everybody is vaccinated. And for those haters who don't get vaccinated, shame them. And people were saying, yeah, I'm so saddened by the ignorance of people who think this wonderful vaccine is anything but life-saving. It's like, what's sad to me is that we become judgmental scumbags. And we really do. We're mean. What a mean thing to say. Oh, I'm so saddened that those ignorant people. Are you a microbiologist? Are you a virologist? How do you know how things are going to affect people or why people make their individual decisions? Now, I want to get your thoughts on this. Michael Andrews says, hey, everything we put into our bodies, everything is calculated. When people get the vaccine, I had a friend who just got the vaccine a couple of weeks ago. He said, I thought this was my last day on earth after getting his second vax. He said the period going into the Olympic trials, you don't want to have to take any time off. That puts you behind. Every day you are not training and you're laying in bed going, oh my gosh, is another day lost. Guys, I'd like to get your thoughts on this.
Well, Michael Andrews' position, it doesn't surprise me because he is right. And Simone Manuel, a fellow swimmer, had the same kind of situation. She had has other medical issues that she's dealing with, and she lost a whole lot of training time going up to the Olympic trials, and I think she only qualified for one event for Tokyo. And I would say that was a strong factor in that. But he's right, because there are even medical people that know a whole lot more than the three of us on this show that have refused to get vaccinated. Now, I'm fully vaccinated. I did it for my wife and other personal reasons and other reasons that were very important. And it's a personal decision is the only thing that I'm going to say. It's a personal decision, and I'm not going to shame anybody for the personal choice that they make.
No, and you know, we have talked about people that we know that have indeed died after getting the vaccine.
My dear friend, 2 days after his second dose, passed away.
Yeah,
and so
it's not to say it's not. And let me just preface this so we don't seem like we are anti-vax. It is rare. But it is a consideration. And there are some 110 health concerns, half of those extreme, that even the makers of the vaccine said are likely to happen within the next 5 to 10 years of people, because we're all in trials. This hasn't been FDA approved. So every one of us who have gotten that vaccine, we're all in the trial to see, well, let's see how this is working. If someone on the Olympics says, I'm not, I need to focus on swimming, I'll take the risk, I have a healthy immune system, then can they just make that decision without being labeled a hater?
Well, it's unfortunate, really. And, I had COVID back in December. And I mean, Dr. Fauci himself, when asked about herd immunity, this was about 2 months ago, he was asked, when do you think that we can reach herd immunity? And his response was, as soon as enough people have had the vaccine or have actually had COVID, then we can move towards that place of herd immunity. And so himself, he was acknowledging the fact that having the natural antibodies is something that will move us towards herd immunity.
Exactly.
I love my natural antibodies. I caught something from some snot-nosed kid in Disney World, probably got a cold from the Frozen ride. Thank you. And do not tell me, let it go, Michelle, let it go. I'm telling you, you get sick, your immune system boots up, you're stronger for it. It's like muscles. It gets a nice workout. Ideally, that's what vaccines can do as well. But it is okay to ask the question, were we not designed with a natural immune system by our maker that if you don't pose a high risk from COVID, maybe it's better? I don't know, but when you see stars like our Olympic athletes saying, wait a minute, it leads a little bit more credence to the conversation, which is otherwise eliminated from social media. I mean, cut out, eliminated. You're not allowed to think this way.
I think another point that I want to bring up, Michelle, I don't know if you've thought about this, and I don't really know what the answer to this question is, but I think one of the other reasons that Michael, Andrew, and maybe some of the other Olympic athletes are hesitant to get the shot is because could there be an outside chance that the shot affect a drug test after an event and thereby affect the results? And what if the taking the vaccine means that you fail a drug test and your medal is taken away?
Yeah, I don't think that what I know of the vaccines, the three vaccines that are popular, that would. But the funny thing is, there's so much we don't know. It is in some ways, very, very new. So it's going to be interesting to watch the Olympics play out for the U.S. There are a few folks who were well on their way to Olympic fame and now pulling back from differing events, which is always heartbreaking because it's not like it happens every year, right, Rich?
Right. Kevin Love and Beal from the Washington Wizards are out. Kevin Love because of a calf injury, and then Mike Beal because of COVID protocols. So they've been replaced, and we'll see what the U.S. men's basketball team can do. They lost to, of all people, Nigeria the other day. In exhibitions, they were 54-0, and now they've lost 2 in a row. And as far as exhibition preparation games go, and they're going to have to turn it around a lot real quick here, because their opener is July 25th against France, and that's not going to be an exhibition game.
Also, as we're talking basketball, there's a couple of interesting stories. Mind bender I'll bring up in just a moment, so don't go anywhere as you're watching this. But I just wanted to touch on the WNBA, where we had the All-Star game with a surprising loss for Team USA.
Surprising loss for Team USA, but I want to preface that, Michelle, with the fact that they've had only until the All-Star game. Before the All-Star game, they had one practice. Okay, so as a unit, they only had one practice, but boy, maybe they should have had two, because the Team WNBA won the game 93-85. Agumbawale from one of the other teams, the MVP, and she was left off the U.S. Olympic team this year, and she'll probably be a team member in 2024. But I'll tell you, this just shows the depth of the WNBA and the Team USA from a women's perspective. We've got some of the best women's basketball players in the entire world. They're going for their 7th gold medal, and I think Team WNBA could possibly win it. Could have possibly also won a gold medal, thanks to Lisa Leslie and Tina Charles, 2 all-time greats of women's basketball, were the coaches of Team WNBA. So I think that had a lot to do with the fact that they won, because those 2 ladies are some of the greatest basketball players to ever grace the court. Garrick, what do you think? Is this going to fire up Team USA to put about 50 on Nigeria? I think it's Nigeria they play on July 27th. They might win by 50.
They're not going to hold anything back, and I think the women's basketball in the U.S. is, I would kind of compare it in a way to women's soccer, in the sense that we are really dominant because of the fact that at a young age, women have organized leagues, girls have organized leagues to play in, and it gives them an opportunity, and it gives, and I want to go back to a topic that we've talked about in the past, which is, the Title IX,
that's a great example of Title IX.
Intercollegiate athletics, where it has really been encouraged to have, participation sports for both women and men. Whereas in the past it was dominated simply by men, and so I think that's a big contributing factor in this country.
Sure. And speaking of domination, this is crazy. This is the mind bender. Think about this. The NBA, we all know it. We all watch it. Or wait, no, we were busy watching European soccer. Rich, tell us about this story. Crazy.
I'm just going to tell you real quick. I don't have the numbers in front of me. 9.4 million people watched the Euro 2020 final, and that Euro 2020 final was up against NBA Finals game number 3. Who had the higher ratings? Euro 2020. LeBron, you're not doing a good job advertising your sport.
Well, I think that speaks in part to the... Go ahead, Michelle.
Well, he's doing a good job advertising Space Jam, so...
Space Jam, which got a 42% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Truly Rotten Tomatoes.
Hey,
Good job.
You're going to watch tomorrow.
Told your movie idea.
Be sure you watch our entertainment review where we talk with Adam Holtz of Plugged In Movie Reviews tomorrow. We review Space Jam. He loved it. Me? There's no Bill Murray. How could it be as good? Anyway, I digress. Go ahead.
Michelle, I got to just say it. If you got to steal an idea from Michael Jordan to make a movie, you don't deserve any. You don't deserve a.
Ouch.
You don't deserve to be successful.
So going back to,
you didn't expect me to say that, did you?
Sports. So I think this speaks to the growing popularity of soccer in this country, and I think, of course, this is my game, and so I could talk all day about this, but the NBA has some problem. Well, part of it is that I think people have gotten tired over the years of just the same old teams in the NBA final. And then now you've got a couple of, you got the Bucks and the Suns, which is, I think, makes it more interesting. And boy, that game four.
So there's got to be more than just the same two teams. I'm thinking me, it's been the politics, which is a bit about, even though I love football, it's been a lot of what turned me off of football. Even some of soccer. I'm tired of the in-your-face political jargon, selective outrage. There's so much that we could be highlighting, but we only highlight the politically correct, or it just has been, come on. I mean, we've talked about this every week. This is nothing new.
Yeah. Well, that was the rest of my point, is that, I mean, the Euros this year were super exciting. I mean, and again, you mentioned earlier, Rich, about having fans back and just the ways that, there was an excitement, there was a buzz for what was going on. And of course, the team that I chose in the beginning, about a month ago, to win it all, actually did win it all. Italy beat England in penalty kicks. And it was an exciting match. I mean, England scored right out of the gate, which I think
they should
work to their.
They should have poured it. They should have poured it on. They didn't pour it on enough. I think, Garrick.
Well, you're right. And they went a little bit defensive, and they got kind of trapped in that. And then when Italy equalized, they just continued their onslaught, and England could not fight back, even though it was in front of their home crowd at Wembley Stadium. It was a tough loss for England, but it was a great win for Italy.
I got to ask you from a coaching perspective, and I want you to be real honest. Put your coaching hat on right now, your pretend coaching hat. We'll just imagine that you put it on. What's a 19-year-old doing taking penalty kicks?
Yeah.
And okay, can I, before you answer that, can we also talk about, in the last few breaths of the game, they put in a couple of kids to make penalty shots, and they didn't make them. So what the heck?
Yeah, I mean,
that sucks. I'm put in the game to make a penalty kick. Oh, I didn't make it.
Well, at this level, I mean, they do practice penalty kicks, and
of course,
and so, Gareth Southgate was very aware of who he felt like were the most confident and consistent penalty takers and penalty makers, and so, I mean, I think going into the match, he had in his mind who he wanted if it were to go to that. And so I don't think it was anything that he just kind of, let's see, who should I put in there? And so these were very intentional decisions. And, it is a game of inches, and the pressure. I mean, I think I mentioned you guys, I played a tournament in Las Vegas in the beginning of May. And in our semifinal or quarterfinal match, I stepped up to take a penalty kick. It ended up getting saved by the goalkeeper. It's a very challenging and a very mentally challenging thing to do, to take a penalty kick. Now, in answer to your question, Rich, in terms of age, I don't think age really matters. I mean, it does in the sense of, if you have an experienced, confident player who is used to taking penalty kicks and scores them well, then you definitely want to go with that, and they did.
Right.
And so some might question whether or not you would want to have someone that young take a penalty kick.
Now, I wasn't pointing out just the age, but in my reference to that, I was pointing out, at least in my mind, aren't there more experienced players that should be stepping up and taking that risk? That's my point on that. Older players should have been the ones to step up and say, well, I'm not afraid of taking that shot.
I think that's it goes to talent. If they're not talented enough, there's some young players. Look at the U.S. men's national team. The average age is 23. And when you're like Christian Roldan and you're the old man on the team at 26, that's crazy. You can see some of that experience that plays out. If I remember right, was it Saka who afterwards just broke down in tears?
Oh, yeah.
And what really was kind of a cool beyond sports moment for me, and maybe as we get to our final shot, a shout out to player Harry Kane. I mean, he's a superstar. He's well experienced, and he was holding him. He was just holding him like he was his little brother and letting him cry. And hey, it's okay. Which was great. That's where you see experience play in, but it can't be too much pressure, or they wouldn't have them on the team.
I think that's a very good point. Michelle. And I'll say again what I just said a second ago. The older players on your team should be your leaders. So they should be the ones, if you want to get the glory for the win, you got to take the responsibility of the stepping up in the crucial moments.
Yeah. And maybe experience does weigh out in the end. The goalie studies each player. You study each player. You know what their tendencies are. You know this is not just a luck of the draw. You study those players, so you have to also have to know the tendency of the goalie, and maybe in that experience does play out. But nonetheless, that was fabulous. Right now, we're in the midst of the CONCACAF Gold Cup, where Team USA is in Group B, and they are just inched out right now in the standings by Canada. They just have one more goal on us, and I'll tell you what, we just wrapped up a game last night against Martinique, and we dominated. We scored 6 goals. The only goal that they scored was on a PK. And Garrick and I were talking about this before, and tell me as you're watching what you think. The PK was awarded for action that took place outside the box but was completed inside the box. I find that a little disturbing. Because
that's very disturbing to me, because
we know that especially South American play is very flop friendly. So if you and I are playing and you touch me outside just near the box, I'm falling inside the box and I'm going to get that PK.
Well, that's why I would just run you over and take you out.
You and that wheelchair of yours.
I would just take it out. I would just take you out. You're not even getting to the penalty area. You can't finish it inside the box because you're about 5 yards away from the box, wishing you were in the box. But that's another time. But that's another show for another time.
Another show for another time. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, the official rule is that if a foul takes place outside of the box, but as the play continues, the actual infraction also continues into the box. So, for example, if a player is grabbing the shirt, that's kind of an obvious, easy example. If you're grabbing someone's shirt, okay, that offense would result in a direct free kick. Now, if you grabbed it while you're outside the box and you continued to pull on it as the guy was running into the box and you pulled him down, then that would be considered a continuation, which would result in a penalty kick.
Just like the NBA. That's why we see so much flopping in the NBA, huh?
Which, interestingly enough, we talked about the Euros. That was part of what was, to me, so much fun. The level of play intensity was astounding. And we don't see that so much in European play, the flopping. Is that because it's like surrender your man card kind of thing if you're flopping? What is it about South America where it's like if you're flopping, you're fabulous? I mean,
they all went to acting class on Tuesday. I think that's
well, it's interesting because Argentina won, and one of the reasons, if you're Brazilian or if you're Argentinian, there's no question of who you're supporting. But in my soccer world, with people that I knew, the majority of players that I knew were supporting, well, in part because of Leo Messi. I mean, we've talked before about how much I love Leo Messi and just how he's a class act. But because Neymar, because that was really the game. It wasn't Brazil versus Argentina. It was Messi versus Neymar.
They call him Flopper.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I think it is. And the South American game has been known kind of for that dramatic flair, right? But now with the VAR and for the first time, they actually allowed VAR to be used in the Copa America or the Copa America Cup. And so I think hopefully it'll become lessened. It depends on whether or not they start to utilize the replay for that. Now, obviously, they review calls in the penalty box and things like that. But this is going to be it's interesting. But I think you make an excellent point, Michelle.
Some of it is the refs that are okay getting played that way. We also have to think about culture. Different cultures value differing things. If you are, there are places in Nigeria where deception is an honorable thing. If I'm able to deceive you, it means that I am smarter or I'm better. It shows myself to be greater. That's interwoven in a culture. And I'm not slamming the culture. I'm just telling you there are cultures where there is that kind of deception. If I get away with this, then I've done something great. There are other cultures around the world where that can fall into place. And think about it, it's human nature. If I can pull one over on you, I don't care what culture I have. I've got one over on you. This is the truth. This is part of human nature. In some of our Western cultures, where there's more of a Christian influence, you frown on that because the Bible talks about deception, that we don't want to be deceptive, that there's a Satan that's the father of lies. So you wonder if culture plays into this a bit, and then when we feed into it with rewarding people when they flop, if that plays into it as well. I like that theory, but then I watch basketball and say, I guess not. Never mind.
I think you're right in some. I think you're right in some cases, Michelle. But I'm going to go back to this. Two of the best athletes I've ever seen, and even though he never played a game in Seattle, I still say that Wayne Gretzky is one of the best athletes to ever walk the planet.
There's a reason he's called the Great One.
Yeah, and he never flopped. And
it's because it's hockey. You don't flop hockey.
Correct.
You lose a tooth, you swallow it, or you kick it across the ice, and you freaking carry on. Have you seen those guys? The guys who play soccer are pretty. They are pretty people. The guys who play hockey, I love those men. Love those men, but they are beat up, man. I'm like 20 years old, I have no teeth.
But here's my point. Wayne Gretzky let his talent speak for himself. I never saw Pele take a flop. Did you?
No.
Have any of you? Both those gentlemen have in common, they let their play and their talent speak for themselves. I wish more athletes.
Well, and they were a cut above too. I actually, that little interesting story from my soccer experience. I was, I think I've shared with you guys, I played soccer in England for a couple of years. And while I was over there, I had the opportunity to meet a gentleman by the name of Alan West. Alan West he played for Burnley City in England at the time in the first division. That's what we call the Premiership now. But he played for Burnley, and he also had a cap, an under-21 cap for England. So he played internationally, but he ended up playing over here in the old NASL with the Minnesota Kicks.
The nasal, yeah. Okay.
And he had an opportunity to play against Pele. And he actually had to defend Pele because he was a central midfielder, and Pele was a central midfielder later in his career and a forward. And he said, you just could not get near the ball. If the ball came to Pele, the way that he was able to use his body and his strength on the ball, because Pele, for those who are not soccer fans who didn't know, Pele played in the U.S. in the North American Soccer League for the New York Cosmos. And so Alan was telling me about just this amazing experience that he had playing against Pele and just having so much. I mean, he respected him before he was on the pitch with him, but afterward, his admiration just went up. And I mean, sadly, the only way that they could stop him in the NASL was to foul him. Which happens in a lot of sports, I think.
And we should be thankful to Pele for coming over with the North American Soccer League, because without the North American Soccer League and the original New York Cosmos, there is no Major League Soccer.
There you go. And again, talent over deception. I appreciate it. Guys, it's time for our final shot.
Final shot.
So our final shot, we go around the round table and we give a shout out. You heard mine already. Harry Kane, way to step up as a team member, comfort the younger player who, feels like he lost the big one for the team. I mean, I just love that. That's beauty in sports right there. Love it. Rich.
Well, my final shot, Michelle, is going to go out to Sue Bird, who is one of the most honest people that I know in the world of sports. After that All-Star game loss that we talked about earlier, where the U.S. women's national team lost 93-85 to Team WNBA, she came out and said, "We are just not a team yet." And I think that speaks volumes to her success and what drives her to be successful and what will make them successful as they win their 7th gold medal. That's my prediction.
Let's hope they do. And Garrick, bring it home.
I'm going to give mine to Team Italy, first for proving me right. But I also want to give a little bit of a shout out to my brother-in-law in Italy. I'm not sure if he's tuned in right now, but it's his birthday today. So Claudio, buon compleanno. So happy birthday to you, and congratulations to Team Italy, because they really and they have an unprecedented unbeaten streak as well. Encyclopedia Rich, are you familiar with that statistic of?
I believe it's over 30. 30 matches. It's over 30 matches.
Yeah, and so it is pretty incredible, and they brought it.
You thought you were going to get me with that one, didn't you, man? You thought you were going to get me.
No. I know better than to ever think that I can stump Encyclopedia Rich. So congratulations, Italy, and happy birthday, Claudio.
I was trying to see if I could find this side by side to share. It was so funny. It was Italy versus England. And I'm sorry, this is the best that I can do. See if you can see it up here in the upper right. So as Italy is coming off the plane, they're wearing polo shirts. They're, kind of messy. This isn't the best picture. One of the pictures, oh my gosh, it was hilarious. Most of them were wearing sunglasses. They're all cool. England full suits. It's like they were the Fab Four or something turned into,
the Queen is going to meet us.
And they're walking off regimentally off the airplane. It was just like two different styles. Who's going to bring it home? So I thought that was kind of funny. Hey guys, I want to thank you for being with us today. Our group was small, but the passion runs high. Remember that what we do with My Michelle Live is our opportunity to continue free speech, to talk about things that aren't often talked about in an era of canceling, and to spread what we call the God story. So please like us, share us, a comment, whatever you can do, and join us at MyMichelleLive.com. Thanks, guys, for joining us.
Thank you, Michelle.
For more fun, go to MyMichelleLive.com.